This is Chief Clarence Louie of the Osoyoos Indian Band, and he has been the chief for 17 terms. You all know him. He's a rock star, man. We all know in our communities this fellow. He is a rock star. We call him, well, in my era, the motley crew of Indigenous economic development in this. Sorry if I'm showing my age again. I can see some of you laughing out there. But yeah, so excited to invite you. Please put your virtual hands together for Chief Clarence Louie.
Come on, Sandra. What do you mean starting on time? You guys are on Indian time.
Oh, man, we just had a long one. We were ahead of time earlier, Chief, so that's why we had to bump it up. We were doing too good of a job of staying on time. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here. We so appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom with us.
Good. So, yeah, I'll jump right into my presentation here. I want to thank the Carrier-Sicani Tribal Council for inviting me to share some of my res stories, which I'll share, and some of my tribal council stories, which are worse than my res stories. I always said I hated going to tribal council meetings. I like being involved in business. I love economic development. I love hanging around business people. So Indian time is something I usually don't put up with, but I will this time. So, Mina Holmes, was great talking to you a few weeks ago. As I mentioned to her, to share stories between tribal councils is so important. And I am still a student, even after 34 years of being a chief. I'm not a know-it-all, and I don't think anybody's a know-it-all. And my grandma said, doesn't matter how many letters you have behind your name, nobody walks on water and no one's a know-it-all. So I'm still a student of Native issues, and John Lewis, it was great talking to you a bunch of times. I was talking to some of my cousins that are living up in your territory. I might not say these words properly, but I got some of my cousins, some of the Louis family living in CCAS and Statlico. And I know we got a bunch of Casimirs, man. We got a bunch of Casimirs from your territory shacked up here. They're all over the place down here on Osoyoos. They're from your territory. And that's one of the things I like, is when First Nations people share territories, and where we get shacked up with each other, and we hire each other is our ECDEV programs. And last count we did, we have over 35 different First Nations working on our res. Through all of our companies. They come from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, all over BC, as well as the Yukon. And some of the projects we have here on our res, you can actually Google the Osoyoos Indian Band, and you'll see all of our projects we're doing. And we hope to have more on the drawing board. As I mentioned, I love economic development. The two things I love doing as a chief, I'm probably the only chief that says this. First thing I love doing is creating jobs, because I believe every First Nation person needs the dignity of a job. Anyone who calls themselves a healthy adult, male or woman, unless you're a mother looking after kids, you should either be in a job or in school. And in my opinion, if you're not in a job or in school, getting ready to be in a job, then you need some counseling, because man, you're messed up if you call yourself a healthy male or woman. You either in a job, in school, or go get some counseling. Maybe it's addictions counseling. And to me, some of the most important type of counseling our people need is employment counseling. And I give a shout out to all of those on every res that work in employment and training. Our employment and training department here, our HR department, is one of our most important departments. Because what I love seeing my people here at the Osoyoos Indian Band is when they can find what's called a career. If you can find yourself a career, whether it's on the res or off, and I don't care what the job is. I don't care if it's being a janitor. I have some of my people that work at Spirit Ridge, one of the best First Nation hotels in the entire country. And one of the ladies works in the cleaning department. And she told me a couple of years ago, she loves her job. And in my opinion, that's one of the most important sentences our people can say. When I hear somebody say, I love my job, then to me, they're a success. I don't care what the job is. I don't look down on any job. I don't care if it's a bus driver, or I don't care if you're a chief and counselor, or managing one of our companies. If you can, and I've had many people sit across my desk and look at me and say, you know what? I love my job. So that's the main thing I work for, is I want to hear my people saying, I love my job. You know, we have people in our grade school on the res, teachers that say they love their job. I can think of our daycare manager. She loves her job. So that's one of my pushes amongst my people here, is to have every one of my members say that they love their job. Because if you love your job, you're going to be a good worker. If you love your job, you're going to earn your paycheck. If you love your job, you're going to advance the lifestyle and the quality of life on your res. So that's what I spend most of my time on. And a few months ago, I got elected to be the Okanagan tribal chair. Going to meetings, I said I didn't like going to, because I actually don't like going to chief and council meetings at the tribal level. Because for one, they never start, or they seldom start on time, drives me crazy. Because in business, you can't run a business on Indian time. Our school and our daycare does not run on Indian time. If any of our teachers ever showed up 5 minutes late, just say 5 minutes late, the parents would be all over them. I'd be getting phone calls saying, get rid of that teacher. She can't start her grade 1 class on time. Get rid of that teacher. They're not there opening our daycare up on time. So when I think of that, I have little patience for tribal council meetings. So I don't know how long I'm going to last as tribal chair, because I start meetings on time. I don't care if a chief's late. If you're late, then you're not respecting my time. And if I'm respecting your time, I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to start this meeting on time. And the best meetings, I always say, end early. I'm not a bureaucrat. I operate like a business person. I love getting things done early. Not that I can run off to the golf course or casino. I like getting things done early so I can get back and do other stuff. Get back in my office here so I can get other stuff done. And I know some Redskins, I call them Redskins, Indians, they don't like that type of talk. Well, you know what? That's okay, because I'm not a politician. There's a big difference between a politician and being a leader, in my opinion. And I've got one of the biggest private book collections of any Native person. I'm always reading, I'm always writing. And I'll put a plug in for my book that's going to come out soon. It's in its final drafts. I was just talking to the publisher from Ottawa this morning. It's called Straight Out of the Res, because I am straight out of the res. And I have chapters in there like Indian politics, res elections, Indian time, my favorite Indian. I even have a chapter on elected chiefs versus hereditary chiefs. Let's get ready to rumble. And my book is all about First Nation independence, what our people have to do to become independent, how to create jobs and make money on your res, and how to develop a network of people. I had a wise businesswoman tell me, she wrote a book called Bet on Me. I met her at the Canadian Business Hall of Fame a few years ago, where I was the first Native ever inducted into Canadian Business Hall of Fame. She wrote a book called Bet on Me. And if I can read a book and get one quote out of that book, the book was worth the read. And the quote I got out of her book was, your net worth is your network. That's why I always love adding people to my network. I love hanging around millionaires. Not that I have a love of money. The equation that is stamped in my mind is money equals opportunity. So I want opportunity for my people, and I can't give them opportunity if we don't have skilau, which in my language means money. an elder from my res, and that's in one of my chapters, I call it res lingo. I have problems with words, some of the way words are thrown around on every res, and elder is one of them. Because I don't think all of a sudden you turn 60 or 65 or whatever the magic age is, then all of a sudden, poof, you're an elder. And I've asked many people in my travels, and I've been on over 300 Indian reserves and Indian reservations in the States. And the word elder is one of the words I have trouble with. Of course, it's an English word, but in our languages, we all have words that kind of match what the English word is. So most people on my res, even some that are 80 years old, tell me they're not an elder yet. An elder is supposed to be somebody with special knowledge and special skills. One of the chiefs on the coast told me a few years ago, he said, you know, some people get old and some people become elders. So just because you're old doesn't mean you're an elder. So we have to watch how we use words in Indian country. And that's the, you know, and our tribal council, our tribal territory here in Osoyoos, we're only 5 minutes from the border. In fact, part of Osoyoos Lake is in Washington State. When the British and the Americans put that border there in the 1846 under the Oregon Treaty, half of my people ended up on the US side of the border and half ended up on the Canadian side of the border. So my experience comes from the US reservation system and the Canadian reserve system, which is basically the same system, because half of my people are on a reservation in Washington State. And the 7 Okanagan bands on this side of the border, the Osoyoos band, the Penticton band, the West Bank First Nation, the Okanagan Indian band, the Upper and Lower Smokeamine band, and our Northwestern band, the Upper Nicola band between Merritt and Kamloops. We argue and fight like every tribal council does. And that's why I don't know how long I'll be tribal chair, because I don't put up with the typical res politics that we all have, the Indian crab syndrome, which we all have. Osoyoos is not a perfect reserve. It's not a perfect community. I have never run into a perfect community. When I'm on the Navajo Nation, the biggest res in the world, 300,000 tribal members, 6 million acres. That res is huge. When I'm on that res in May of every year, except last year it got canceled because of COVID, Native motorcycle rides that I participate in all throughout Indian country, Navajo res, biggest res in the world. When I hear their res politics and the pettiness and the bickering that goes on, I always tell them, you guys sound just like us back in the Okanagan, exactly like us. Man, you guys got the same Indian crab syndrome, the same stupid Facebook rants and the same stupid Facebook election stuff that Osoyoos has, and we're only 540 people. So that's why I know your communities up there act and talk and have the same. Here's a suggestion for you guys. Read The Canoe of Fools by Gilbert Oscabus. In my opinion, he was the best Native writer in North America. He wrote a column for the First Nation perspective, and in his best writing, I think, was called A Canoe of Fools. The 12 idiots, it might be 13 or 14, that exist on every Indian reserve. And when I read his 12 idiots, when I read number 1, names go up in my mind. We got that idiot on our res. I read idiot number 6. I think we got the same idiot you had on your res, Gilbert, over in Ontario. We got the same type. So I guess the point I'm making is leaders, we got to quit acting like politicians. We got to start acting like leaders. I always tell my people, the way I talk to you right now is the way I talk at my band meetings. The way I'm talking right now is the way I talk at my council meetings. I don't change the way I talk for anybody. I don't care who's in the room. Because my teachings come from all the reserves and reservations I've been on as a student, Native American Studies, where I went to in Lethbridge and Regina, and all of the people I've met along my Indian business trail. Most of the words I'm speaking are actually their words. They're not my words. So we got a lot of shaping up to do. And I know our tribal council is as messed up as any tribal council. In fact, I think you guys are a little bit further than us. We're trying to develop our own, whether you call it a constitution or whatever you want to call it. We're trying to work out the differences between the bands and the backyard differences, and who leads a project on a mining development, or whether it's a ski hill development, or whether it's BC Gas or a BC Hydro project. And of course, we argue over money, because the Supreme Court of Canada court decisions, what is Gilgamook or the Chilcotin case, anything off the res is held collectively by that tribal territory. That's how our ancestors thought, because our ancestors were not res Indians. The res culture, as I call it, is not our culture. We never had the Indian Act. We never had elections before. We never had status cards. We never had land allotments. We never had CPs. So the res culture, as I call it, is not our culture, but it's what we've grown up with. And prior to Indian reserves, the Okanagan people held land collectively. And the Supreme Court of Canada says that's what collective ownership is. That's what Native title or First Nation or Aboriginal title and rights is all about. Not as individual Indian Act bands. So here in the Okanagan, we've worked out, we're taking on the elephant in the room, which is money. How do we collectively share natural resource development in our territory? And most every tribal group I've run into talks about starting their own war chest, because lawyers aren't free. Nothing's free. Everything from cradle to grave we do on my res and your guys' res costs money. I don't care if it's education, housing. Even when we bury our people, it costs money. So everything from cradle to grave costs money. So in order to defend and advance our Aboriginal title and rights, we need to start having our own legal war chest, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm glad you guys have a pathways agreement. We don't have one yet, so I want to go to school and hear from Mina how you guys did, and have Mina talk to our chiefs, because traditionally we shared information. And traditionally we had trade routes with each other. There was the oldest grave ever dug up near Osoyoos was dug up a few years ago in a provincial park. And archaeological evidence, again, proves what was found in that grave did not come from the Okanagan Territory. It didn't even come from Washington State. It came further south. So all over North America, what's found on the East Coast somehow wound up on the West Coast, because we had trade routes. As tribal people, we did business with each other. And that's what I want to get back to, our old way of doing business with each other. And part of that is we share information. In the Indian way, we share, we help our cousins out. I want to help you guys out up there. You guys help us out. That's how we should be treating each other. And we should share the good, the bad, and the ugly with each other, because that exists in every one of our tribal councils. So right now at the Okanagan Tribal Council, we got a revenue sharing formula, which identifies benchmarks of what's a major project, like how many millions, I can't remember, it's $20 million or whatever it is. There's a formula for sharing that. So much to each community and so much it stays in the war chest. In the smaller projects, the closest community can have it all. But we're still arguing about that, because of course, as soon as money hits the table, some of the chiefs and bands don't want to share. They don't want to follow what we agreed to before money hit the table. So that's the stuff I have problems with, is when leaders act like politicians and they bend to the wind. In the Indian way, a real leader will stand up against the wind. A real leader will stand up by themselves if they have to, on principle. they'll stand up and say, I don't agree with that because. So some people don't like the way I talk or the way I present myself, and that's fine because I'm not a politician. I always tell people, if you don't like what I say or how I said it, get over it. I'll probably never see you again. You'll probably never see me again. So get over it. Because as I mentioned, the way I talk and the way I say things, and I don't hold back, and I don't talk like a politician. Actually, the editor of my book, he said, Clarence, you can't swear so much. Take this out, take that out. Quit saying this against white people. You're saying this against these other Indians. They did dumb shit. Well, they did do dumb shit. So in any case, I'm looking forward to sharing information. When I first heard about this Pathways Agreement word or title, I thought, that sounds like some treatment center program. Pathways? Tell me about it, Mina. Share your stuff. There should no secrets in Indian country, right? We're cousins. You're my cousins up there. I got some of your people shacked up on my res. Let's share agreements with each other. Unity. When I think about what's with the arguing we're doing at our tribal council and the lack of unity, it really pisses me off that so many of our people don't understand their res roots. I think if we had our old people around the table, those that spoke the language, those that know the stories, those that know our chaptik and the laws that come from, those stories are not just stories. I hate it when our white people call our stories legends. I said, well, shit, that black book you guys carry around called the Bible, that thing's full of legends and stories too. So I always like bringing language speakers to our meetings when our chief and councils start bickering and talking this English and arguing amongst ourselves too much, because the old people, especially those that know the language and the stories and the culture and the meaning behind those stories, they know we're all the same people. Sometimes we got to get rid of the Robert's Rules of Order. Get rid of this parliamentary procedure stuff. Get rid of this white way of doing, of running our meetings. And let's bring the Indian way back into the room. Let's talk to each other as Indian people, like our people did when they didn't speak English or know how to read. So in my opinion as well, when we talk about social development, one of the best quotes I ever heard, and I love quotes, the best social program is a job. That's what I believe. The very best social program is a job. You can't separate economic development from social development. It's all intertwined. As the native people keep on saying, everything's holistic. We need the holistic approach to how we do things on the res. And as I mentioned, Osoyoos is not a perfect community. We have our hang-ups. We have the res dysfunction that every res have. We have stupid politics now, and I can't believe how our politics now is becoming, as much as we bitch about white people and we complain about white people and colonialism, man, do we ever act like colonial people at election time? Man, do we ever act like those white people and those white governments that we call down? We campaign like them now. Facebook? Come on, you talk with your fingers now? Let's talk like the old Indians. You want to say something to me, you say it to my face. If you got the guts to write something about me, you better have the guts to say it to my face in public as well. We got to get our people away from talking with their fingers. They need to get back to talk with their voice, to look people in the eye when they talk to them. Yeah, our res politics is getting too much like Sama in our language, white. Some are politics. Sama shoot in my language means you're acting too much like white people. I find myself saying that more and more. Sama shoot, we're acting too much like white people. We gotta, if we call ourselves whatever native you call yourself, then start acting like it. I don't know if Ray Giroux's on the call, but I was razzing Ray by phone call a few weeks ago because I've known Ray for a long time, and I go, Ray, I heard this res rumor through the smoke signals down here. Are you really a chief? What the hell? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. My buddy, old buddy Ray Giroux's the chief up in your territory. That's pretty cool, actually. I'll have to run into the guy one of these times. At our tribal council here, I see you have a fisheries department. Our fisheries department here in the Okanagan is unique in that it's a cross-border fisheries, because as I mentioned, half of Osoyoos Lake is in Washington State. So we have a huge, the biggest budget in our tribal council is our fisheries department. I think it's $6 million, or it could be $8 million. And most of that money comes from Washington State because of the dams that they put up that impacted the Okanagan Sockeye and Okanagan Chinook. So we get a lot of money from the Washington State dams to reintroduce and to advance the Okanagan Sockeye and Chinook populations. So we have a state-of-the-art fish hatchery on the Penticton Indian Reserve. And we're working out how to have a Chinook hatchery here on the Osoyoos res. So fisheries is our biggest department in our tribal council, and fisheries is very important. I'm glad to see your tribal council has a fisheries department. So one of my band members is, as I mentioned, I spend 7 days a week in my office. I love coming here, especially on Saturdays and Sundays when nobody's around, because I get more work done when there's nobody around. And I catch up on my emails and phone calls and things like that. And what I've learned in business is that if you want to be a real business person, business is not bureaucratic hours. It's not the grade school hours, what I call band office hours, 8:30 to 4:35 days a week. People in business work 7 days a week. And because we own so many businesses, golf courses, restaurants, RV parks, sometimes I have trouble naming all of our business operations. But half of my people work evenings and weekends because they work in the tourism sector. So that means they have to work Saturdays and Sundays. That means they have to work in the evenings. It's not the easy hours that band offices have, or that most chiefs and councils have. In business, you work 7 days a week, just like ranchers. You can't run horses and cattle if you don't feed them every day. There's no such thing as shutting down for 2 weeks at Christmas time. I can't believe some band offices still shut down for 2 weeks at Christmas time. I mean, come on. That's for grade school. Sam Walton, one of the best business people in the world who owned Walmart, started Walmart. He said Monday to Friday is when you keep up with your competition. It's on weekends and evenings that you get ahead of your competition. So if you want to call yourself a leader, work leadership hours. Leadership hours are evenings and weekends. You can't call yourself a leader if you don't work evenings and weekends. So I could keep on talking and talking. I haven't looked at the time yet. 8 minutes to noon. So I don't know, Chair, if we're going to go to any Q&A.
I am opening it up. Ma'a, my cousin, Ma'a, from your northern Tekelmo cousin down from Williams Lake Indian Band. So,
are you from Williams Lake? Hey, I spoke up in Williams Lake. It's one of my cousin buddies. He's a motorcycle rider like me, the chief up there, Willie.
Oh, yes. Our wonderful chief. Excellent.
So I've got an Indian and a couple Harleys, and I'm always traveling. Actually, I rode my Indian bike up there. I spoke at his community outside when the rare times, of course, because of COVID, I had to speak outside at their powwow arbor in June. Well, maybe it was July. Yeah, so I was up on your res a couple months ago.
Cook's Jam. All right, anybody? I have one hand up here, and I'm going to check in here. We've got some great things. First of all, I'm going to ask again before I jump into questions. I've had a few people ask me the book that you referenced about the 12 idiots. There seemed to be quite some interest about hearing that.
Well, it's not a book. It's actually an article. If you Google it under Gilbert Oscaboose, or what I'll do is I'll scan it. It's actually, you have to read it. It's funny. because that's one thing in Indian country all have. We call it res humor. And in my book, I have a chapter on res humor. So in any case, yeah, it's called The 12 Idiots That Exist on Every Indian Reserve. And it's a 2-page article. It's a great read. He uses humor, but he also states the fact that we have idiots amongst us. But he does it with res humor. It's actually really funny. So I'll make sure I scan it and I'll send that to you guys.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I've been searching for it ever since you mentioned it. Can't find it online.
I know. I was.
You know, when you guys read it, I know every one of you will say, that person sits around my council table. Idiot number 10 is around our, and that's just the way it is, in any case.
Excellent. I said it may just not be around my council table, might be around my dinner table. I don't know, but we won't tell anybody that. So I'm going to open up the floor. I see I've had lovely, thank you for your patience. And I'm hoping that she still wants to ask a question, or if it was, is Charlotte Monica Charlie. I see that you have your hand up and I'm just going to invite you. I'm going to allow you to talk. And I'm going to go down to Q&A here in a sec. So Charlotte Monica Charlie, if you'd like to say a few words here, I'm just going to ask you to unmute. And if not, that's okay. I'm going to see here. And when she jumps in, I'm just going to go into question and answer here.
But I'm also interested in getting your guys' constitution, because here at the Okanagan Tribal Council level, we're behind you guys. We're not as far down the path as you guys are on I think you guys said, Mina, didn't you guys say you had your own constitution, or you work above the Societies Act or something like that?
We're a registered society with a constitution, yes.
Great. Well, I'd love to read your guys' constitution.
Yep.
Nina, would you like to go through the question and answer?
Sure. Okay. I'm just going to look on the Q&A board first. I think there's what I see in relation to Chief Clarence Louie's commentary is Jackie Thomas is no question from me, but just thanks for speaking on leadership. I'm willing to share how we got to where we're at, and again, share information with anyone who wants to know about our trip now. So Jackie is chief during the one of the chiefs on the negotiation of the pathways from the very beginning of the negotiations. So she's offering her stories there. And Jackie again, most of those shocked up people are from SICAs.
Oh, right on. Sweet. But the other thing, like I said, I don't believe there's no such thing as an instant elder. In fact, past National Chief Ovid Mercury told me this many years ago. He said there are many popcorn elders on every res.
Popcorn elders.
I said, what's a popcorn elder? He said, an instant elder. You know, you turn 60 or 65 or whatever the number is, to get services from your community. And here we give a lot of services to people that are 60 and older. And it doesn't mean they're an elder. I hate it when people connect that. It doesn't mean they're an elder. It just means they're a senior or whatever you want to call it. But the other thing that I firmly believe, there's no such thing as an instant leader. We got too many people in Indian country after every election. All of a sudden they get elected and boom, they think they're an instant leader. Leadership's a study. It's like anything else. If you don't study leadership, how the hell do you become a leader? You got to read the books, listen to the tapes, listen to the lectures, hang around experienced, successful people. That's what I do. As I keep on saying, I'm still a student. One of the best examples, I ran into Peter Brown. If you Google Peter Brown, he's one of the most successful white people in the province. I wanted to meet him because he's a multimillionaire, does business all over Canada. This guy's almost 80 years old. I met him in Vancouver. He's sitting by himself. It took me a while to actually get a meeting with him. When I walked up to him, I saw this thick book on the table. And I'm always interested in books. I said, Peter, what's that book you're reading? And that book was on leadership. Took up my cell phone right away. Said, Peter, I don't have that book on leadership in my leadership book collection. I got a whole stack of books on leadership. So I took a picture of it and I said, Peter, I'm going to get that book and add it to my book collection. Here you are, 80 years old. Really successful business person. And he's still reading books on leadership. That's what we all need to do. That's the lesson I got out of meeting Peter Brown.
Super fan of reading books. Clarence, I just wanted two more here and then two more on the other page here. There's two questions posed in the Q&A box. I'm just going to add them together. The first one, Sherry Tippett's asking, Chief Louis, what are your thoughts? BC never signed treaty and BC First Nations can work together as one to make change. This is also connected to Terry TG, who says, hello, Chief Louis, good to see you. What would you suggest CSTC do in assertion of our Indigenous rights, especially with other parties asserting interests, such as governments, mining companies, forestry companies, or other groups such as the Métis asserting recognition of rights to hunt and fish? Thank you for the.
Oh, don't get me pissed off about Métis. I'll share you guys. I brought up the Métis issue not long after I was elected chair in July. Yeah. We wrote and I hate it when people pussyfoot around words. Geez, I hate that. Mm-hmm. So in any case, I'll share with you our letter that we sent out to the federal government, to the provincial government about the Métis issue in our backyard here in the Okanagan, and I'm sure it applies up there as well. Yes. What we basically said in our letter, there are no Métis rights in BC. There should not be such a thing as a Métis nation of BC. That's a ridiculous statement. I have members that have grown up in Manitoba. We'd look like idiots if we opened up an Okanagan Nation of Manitoba. Mm. Métis do not belong on the prairies, yes, but not here in BC. And we actually went to court. We took the Métis to court on the north end of the Okanagan in Vernon. One of them shot a deer. This was like 5 or 10 years ago. We actually went to court and we won a court case against them. I'll share that court case with you guys. So we're always fighting with the Métis issue. When they open up offices in our territory, we go hostile on them. And that's what we have to do. We have to stop this Métis encroachment in BC on First Nation territory. And I actually don't like it when I hear that word Indigenous or Aboriginal. My mom actually hates that word, Indigenous. Because technically and legally, as soon as you say Indigenous or Aboriginal, who are you including?
Everybody.
You're including under the Canadian Constitution, you're including the other two Native groups, Inuit and Métis. Well, there's no Inuit in your territory. There's no Inuit in my territory. There's no Métis rights in my territory or your territory. So I actually don't like using that word Indigenous or Aboriginal. I use the word First Nation, Native, or Indian when we're talking about rights and title here in the Okanagan. But when you're dealing with, we're dealing with mines all the time and natural resource development. You have to go to school on success and I always tell people, don't use the same damn lawyers over and over and over again. Man, we pay off their mortgages. Yeah. We make them rich. Use different lawyers. Always read the newspapers. I'm always reading the daily newspapers, listening to the daily news. When I hear that another First Nation won a court case, whether it's on whatever it may be on, first question I have is who's the lawyer they used? Because that's who we want to use next time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have to legally defend your Aboriginal title rights, sign mutual benefit agreements. It used to be called IBAs, but don't sign dumb ones because we got to start raising the bar in Indian country. I hate it when bands don't share their agreements or they hire these stupid lawyers that have failed cases. Go to school on success, and that means go to school on other bands that have done good IBAs. When I heard the Kamloops Indian Band, and Shane Godfredson was bragging at the time, he said, we signed the best IBA in Indian country. I said, good. I hope you did. I hope you signed the better IBA than we did with a gold company, not far from Osoyoos. I said, give me your IBA, and plus I want to know which lawyer did you use. That's why we got to share information. And I hate it when Indians say, well, we signed a non-disclosure agreement. I mean, what the F? You can't tell me those mining companies and those pipeline companies ain't talking to each other behind the scenes. You can't tell me they're not sharing shit. Look what we did with this Indian band. Don't you guys sign better because other Indian bands will come back to us. You can still share information off the record. You can still share non-disclosure agreements off the record. Geez, we got to get back to acting like cousins and quit acting like these corporate entities where we protect it. We bow to natural resource companies, or we bow to what the province says. Oh, this is a non-disclosure agreement. Don't share it with your cousins. I mean, come on. Indians got to start acting like Indians again. That's the bottom line. And what we use down here is learn how to Indian up. God damn it, Indian up.
I think you've started a new phrase, Indian up. So, Zandra, I think I just should feel that I should add Rosanna Munger. No question from me. Love your presentation. We need more chiefs like you. You take no shit.
Here you go.
Janice Reynolds.
Actually, I take shit, but I learned from my Mohawk teacher many years ago, Tom Porter. His leaders, he says, in the Mohawk way, you got to have skin 7 layers thick. You got to have skin 7 layers thick, especially against your own people that are going to throw sharp words at you and try and penetrate your heart. I remembered that from university when I was 20 years old, listening to him. He says, a leader in the Indian way has to have skin 7 layers thick.
Good advice. Tanis Reynolds says, do you have ideas on how we can change the fraud system from the AFN to the band offices?
The flawed system from the AFN to the band offices?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's more about working collectively, more structured collective work. I don't know, maybe Tanis wants to come on.
Well, I guess it might be, not understanding the context of the question, but it might be around the context of what I brought up is we need to bring more of our old ways back into how we make decisions.
Yeah, there you go.
In a chapter in my book, there's a chapter called Listening to the Wind.
Government system. Okay.
Traditional decision making. It's called Listen to the Wind, and I give an example of how sometimes major decisions, and this major decision had to do with that gravesite I was talking about that the government was digging up and we stopped it. And how I made a decision. Sometimes when you make decisions as leaders, get away from the lawyers, get away from the consultants, get away from the papers, get away from your desk, and go listen to the wind. That's what I did. I went down to that grave site, that ancestral grave site, and I just listened to the wind. It was weird when I told the government, because they're saying, Clarence, you guys have shut down this park, and summer's coming up. When are we going to get a decision? When are we going to be allowed to get this provincial park opened up again? And I told them, I'll say this to you guys, and it's not meant for the media. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go listen to the wind. And that's what I did. So it's kind of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, sometimes you got to go back into ceremony. Sometimes you got to go back into your heritage and culture and into the stories, the Chaptik stories we have down here. Coyote stories, they're called in English. You guys have the same stuff up there. Mm-hmm. Every tribal group has the same traditional decision-making ways of going back to the land, or going, what I call listen to the wind. In some of your best lessons and your best direction will come from ceremony, whether it's sweat houses. I don't know if you guys sweat house up there.
We sweat.
Or whether it'll come from just going out on, in some of the best examples that I get for my decision making is I have this equation in my, or the scale. I have this imaginary scale in my mind with pluses and minuses on it. Every decision is very, very rare, all to the good pluses or all to the bad negatives. Every decision has a combination of pluses and minuses. And you have to weigh those things out.
Thank you for that. Just to double check, Clarence, what was the name of the book Peter Brown was reading?
Geez, I have it on my cell phone.
Maybe you can text it to me later or something. And I'll
Lessons in
just,
leadership, I think.
what is it?
Lessons in leadership, but I'll text it to you.
Okay, thanks.
I've got some suggestions, and you should read some of the leadership books. In fact, the West Bank chief, he's a rookie chief. We're starting to share books we're reading, and he sent me some books from geez, I just had his name too. Any case, we as leaders, we should be sharing, like I'm going to share the Canoe of Fools. You should be sharing books and sharing knowledge, sharing stories. John Maxwell, that's the name. John Maxwell has written more books on leadership than most people. And I love one of his quotes where he says, the job of a leader is not to create followers, it's to create more leaders. I love that quote. So if you call yourself a leader, you don't create followers. You don't look for followers. You look to create leaders, additional leaders. That's the real job of a leader. If you're not creating more leaders, then you're not a leader. You're a politician.
Okay, I think that's mostly it. Terry Chiji says, thanks, Chief Louis. We sent a follow-up letter too from First Nations Leadership Council to the Premier and the province as well. And Terry Lugie, hi, Chief Louis. My Louis cousins live in your territory.
Right on. You know, one thing I've mentioned, I've been on over, other than the regional chief like Terry or the national chiefs, very few people have been on more Indian reserves or Indian reservations than me. And I'm in my 34 years of being a chief, and that's only because people want to hear the Osseous Indian Band story. And it's not so much me. There's better speakers than me, way better speakers than me. So I've had the honor and the privilege to speak up in your territory a couple of times on your guys' reserves up there. And what I've noticed, this is what I notice in Indian country. Is a grandparent now. My best lessons now come from my little boss, I call her. She's my granddaughter. Man, she's teaching me a lot. But, and I'm so glad that our band office is right next to our grade school and our daycare. I love hearing the sound of children. Man, I love hearing their laughter and playing outside. It's the best. But what I've learned in my travels of being on all of these Indian reserves in Apache country, Navajo country, Cherokee country, or Mohawk country, or back east, when I go on the res and I look at the little kids, they look like my little kids that are playing outside here, exactly like them. In fact, sometimes I take pictures and I bring back in it, they look just like, they could be OIB kids. They look just like OIB kids. In the elderly, the old people look just like my old people back here. So in Indian country, what I've noticed is the very young and the very old, we all look alike. We've all went through the same res culture, whether it's residential schools and these stupid band elections, which are a necessary evil nowadays. Res system that we have. That's what really makes me proud to be an Indian. And in fact, my last chapter in my book is called "Damn, I'm Lucky to Be an Indian." Because when I was sitting at the University of Lethbridge and I heard Oren Lyons, he's still alive. I was 19 years old. We're talking 40 years ago. I heard him speak, and he talked about being a Iroquois or a Mohawk in the city of New York. And he gave this story, which is in my book. And his last words were, you know, no matter what's happened to us and how pissed off we get with each other and how pissed off we get with all that's happened to us, he says, you know what? Damn, I'm lucky to be an Indian. And so that's the last title chapter in my book. And I believe that. And I'm so proud to have been up in your territory because your people just look like my people down here.
Yeah.
The same hangups you guys are going through up there, we're going through them here. And the only way we're going to get through this nonsense is to share our stories and to share our experiences and share our successes and failures.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you learn in the Native way. You know, there's lessons to be learned in the smart people, the real leaders. I'll catch those little lessons. Sometimes they're just little lessons that you got to pay attention to. And sometimes the best lessons that I'm starting to learn come from the little people, come from the kids. That's where us as adults, our leaders that sit around the tribal council table, you know, sometimes I wish the bickering we're doing at our tribal council table, we need to get the little kids in here to tell us how to smarten up.
Yeah.
My res school here has a bunch of rules written on the wall, you know, about how to treat each other. I'm thinking, what the hell's wrong with our chiefs and councils? Why don't we follow what the kids' rules are? If we followed what the Indian kids' rules are in our grade schools, we'd knock off most of this Indian crab syndrome that we have at our tribal council table.
Mm-hmm.
We got to start listening to the kids and follow their rules, because they're our best teachers. The little ones, as my grandma used to say, the little people. Listen to the little people. Limlimt in my language. Thank you.
What was the name of your book?
Straight out of the res.
Straight out of the res. Love it. Do you have one more question? Sorry, Sana. I know Zana's trying to get us moving here, but I think this is really, I think you've answered some of this, but I think this person could use a real solid answer. Yvonne George, Chief Clarence Louis, thank you for sharing your information. I'm a new counselor for Stellatan. What advice can you give me, give me to be a good leader, which worked for you when you were a greenhorn back in the day? I've been listening to the latter part of your presentation and enjoying it.
Always be a student. Nobody's an instant leader. And there's no finish line. And just like there's no finish line in business, there's no finish line in being a leader. You know, I've been at this for 34 years. I'm going through another election right now. I haven't changed my platform in 30 some odd years. Always be a student. I mean, read, look up leadership, read about it. Have a library. I mean, that's what I'm trying to convince some of my young council people here. I'm buying them books. And I said, one of these days, not long, I'm going to say, I want to go to your house and show me your library. Because every successful person that I run into in the white world, they have a library. And if you're going to school like college, university, guess what they make you do? I think they make you read books still. So you should be keeping those books that you've read. I've got a collection. You can see some of my collection behind me. I got no more wall space for all my sports memorabilia. The Habs won last night, so I'm happy about that. But probably my prized collection is my books. And whether I remember being in the Premier's office, in the Prime Minister's office, and Jimmy Patterson's office. First thing I did when I see somebody's bookcase, if I go into your office and I see your bookcase, I see a bookcase with books, I'm gonna look past shaking your hand. I'm gonna go to your books. Because I want to know, what did you read? What are you reading that got you to where you're at? Here's a quote for that person that asked that question. Write this quote and put this under your pillow. It's actually a quote in my book, and I can't remember who actually wrote it. But the two biggest influences in a person's life, the two biggest influences in the person's life are the books you read and the people you meet. So if you want to be a leader with influence, read books and go hang around successful people. In the business world, in the cultural world, like I mentioned Tom Porter, I mentioned Oren Lyons. Those are some of my teachers from the cultural side. I could name a ton of people on the business side, and I love hanging around business people. And this racetrack that's on our res, here's another quote, and why I love hanging around this guy. He's a multimillionaire. He built this fancy racetrack on our reserve, sold out, 400 members. All the major car companies have memberships there. And he says, Clarence, okay, and he semi-retired, and I said, so what do you do now? He says, I'm a business coach. And those two words just surprised me. I said, a business coach? Shit, I've never met anybody that said they're a business coach. You're a business coach? He goes, yeah, I give business advice to multimillionaires, mostly from Ontario. And I said, so I want to learn from you, guy. I said, you're a business coach. I don't have a business coach. I need a coach. So I want you to be my coach. And he tells me, he says, okay, Clarence, I got some rules. I got 4 rules. I don't work with anybody that breaks these 4 rules. And I'm not going to hang around anybody that breaks these 4 rules. And the 4 rules are taught from him from some course. And I can't remember. Actually, if you ask me, I'll send you them. But he said, these are the 4 rules. Number 1, be on time. And I go, wow, that's my Indian time. I said, I dig that. I agree with that. He says, I can't work with anyone. You got to be on time. 2nd, finish what you start. 3rd, do what you say you're going to do. But his 4th one really surprised me because I'd never heard that one before. He said, say please and thank you. Those are my 4 rules for anybody I'm going to work with. I can't work with anybody that doesn't. If you're going to break any of these rules, I don't want to be around you. Be on time. Finish what you start. Do what you say you're going to do, and say please and thank you. I thought, wow. So after he said that to me, I quickly wrote them down. In fact, they're hanging on my wall. And that's the rule I want to bring into my tribal council table for all the chiefs. Be on time. Finish what you start. Do what you say you're going to do, and say please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I phoned them back. I said, I want to talk to you about your 4th rule, because that really intrigues me. Say please and thank you. You won't work with anybody that doesn't say please and thank you. Now, and it makes me think of all the books I got in my bookcase, because there's books in my bookcase called Working with Assholes, Working with Idiots, a toxic workplace. Because the sad fact is, in every one of our band offices and everyone in our council table, we have people whose egos are closed-minded people, or whose egos are too big. You think they walk on water just because they're a chief or a council member, or they don't treat people with respect. Yeah. And I thought, wow, I really love that last rule, say please and thank you. And I thought, I'm going to incorporate that in my life. I don't want to be around people that don't say please and thank you. So that's pretty cool stuff to me.
Awesome stuff. I mean, I think the please and thank you really goes into the integrity of the person or the values. So that's just really love listening to you, Clarence. I think I could listen to you as many others could listen to you all day. I do have, Terry TG squeezed one more question. This is the last question, Terry. Last question. Do you have any good recommendations for mental health or just physical health in general to deal with COVID-19 pandemic? We have lost elders to this terrible disease, and members have survived this disease, and members who survived this disease as well, Masi Chochi. So we, in our communities, Clarence, we've lost quite a number of people in many of our communities, with huge numbers who are still in the hospital. A couple of the communities, a number of our communities have experienced like multiple deaths and loss, and it's been overwhelming and sad. I feel like we're in a constant state of grief. And so what do you suggest? What kind of recommendations do you have for mental health?
Again, my health stuff is not mainstream stuff. So, I mean, that's a tough one. Of course, this pandemic is something we've never had to deal with. Another white man's disease, if you want to call it that, came from smallpox, and 100 years later, now we're dealing with this sort of stuff. But that's a tough question. Of course, I don't have all the answers. No one has the magic bullet or can wave magic wand, but when people talk about health with me, again, it goes back to, you can't separate health from, when people talk about the four quadrants, what is it? Physical, emotional, spiritual, and health. Is that the four? Isn't there four quadrants Indians always talk about? They put them
Physical,
mental, spiritual.
emotional.
Yeah, emotional. Those four quadrants, they're all intertwined. And man, I can only tell you about the things I do. I mean, every day after this office closes, I go to where, when people ask me, Clarence, where are you? Or whereabouts am I calling you from? I go, I'm getting some healing and wellness. People ask, you're getting healing and wellness? Really? What are you doing? I said, I'm in our weight room. That's where I go to get healing and wellness. So I just find our people, we need to be more physically active, and some of that. And when I hunt, which is rarely, I always let the other guys do the shooting. What I'm looking for is the good leg burn, in the good lung burn. I want a good hike. That's what I want out of a hunt, is a good hike. And I just think our people don't talk about the physical aspect enough. They talk about the other three. Like I've heard and I've seen all these counseling workshops, in fact, in our O&A, the second biggest budget, $4.5 million, is called a health and wellness.
Mhm.
But I rarely hear, most of our people don't have a fitness plan.
True.
They don't have an exercise plan.
Mhm.
I mean, most of our people are pretty out of shape. I'm talking physically.
Yeah.
And when you're out of shape physically, you're susceptible to more. Any doctor will tell you, get some exercise.
Mhm.
Again, I mean, there's far more people that have far more knowledge than I do on COVID-19. But I mean, we're having to deal with the same thing the whole world's having to deal with. But I think a lot of our problem, and if you go to powwows, man, the stuff they serve at powwows, don't eat most of it. I mean, geez.
That's so good.
It's good, but man, most of our people need to get a fitness plan, need to get an exercise plan. I don't care if it's walking. If you can't lift the weights, then go walking, or go for a good leg burn hike. But yeah, so I mean that's the only thing I can add to that, because of course the health staff in each one of our communities are saying what they're saying, doing what they're with all this COVID stuff. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't have all the answers, other than, if the more fit you are physically,
Mhm.
obviously the more most people, the more stronger your immune system will be, the more stronger you'll be able to handle things. I'm not saying you can handle COVID, but I think a doctor would still say the more fit you are, the more chances you are of handling anything better.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's all I can add to that question, other than our people need to really listen to their health care workers and the specialists, because it is. And our people, I mean, on the Penticton Reserve just north of us, they announced yesterday a couple more cases last night. And I thought, well, our people, and it came from a funeral. And you know how our Indian people are around funerals. And man, we just gotta wear masks, and social distance as best you can.
Mhm.
And we have to get the shot. And of course push for these shots to come. In fact, some of my people are saying I ain't taking the shot. I said, well, I'm gonna take it. I mean, geez, I get the flu shot every year, and I only started that 10 years ago, and I've actually never had the flu. I've never, even all the 50 years when I wasn't taking flu shots, I think it's partly because I go to the gym most every day.
Yeah, it sounds like you have that you practice staying fit and healthy. So
And I
that,
was so embarrassed 2 years ago, in my 32nd year as being a chief. I took half a day sick day for the first time ever.
Wow.
And I was so embarrassed because I wanted to be able to say, when I quit being chief, I never took one sick day. But man, I had to take a half a day sick day for, I can't even remember what it was, but I took half a day sick day off, and that was embarrassing for me. But again, I'm just saying that I've been really lucky with my health, and I just call it luck. But I think part of that luck comes from I have a fitness plan.
Mhm.
I have an exercise plan, and I get my butt into the gym every day after work. And I'll be in that gym right after, as soon as this office closes today.
Wow. That's very inspiring. Thank you, Chief Clarence. I'm really looking forward to following up with you. I just wanted to comment that Fabian Tom on here says he's a newly elected council member of my band Mazda Nation. We're listening to you today, Chief Clarence Louie, has given me inspiration on how to learn and love the idea of books. And just so to know, I want to share with you, everybody, in January, we started a book club here at the Tribal Council. I love to learn. I want books, whether it's books or audio. It's just like, let's share, have a book club here now. Because it's instead of going away to do like these professional.
But that's the other thing is leaders, we travel a lot in our cars. So one of my biggest collections is CDs, books. Don't just drive in your vehicle for hours and hours and listening to music or the radio. Throw on a book. Man, that's time well spent.
Yeah.
You should have an audio collection, a book audio collection, and use your travel time as a leader for productive learning. Turn your car or pickup into a lecture room.
Fantastic. Okay, Zandra, I'll turn it back to you. Say thank you, Clarence Louie, on behalf of all of us. Like, you are inspiring and engaging, and I absolutely love and adore your upfrontness and your just everyday talk. There's no politics about it, and that's really inspired me even more today. I look forward to speaking further with you. I think we're going to have some real interest in bringing others to come and meet with you in your council and to meet with your tribal council as well. Thank you.
And we want you speaking to our tribal council soon.
That's what I mean. There'll be a couple of us coming there. Well, however we come there. But thank you so much. Hands raised to you on behalf of all of Carriacou County for membership here. Thank you. Okay. I'm done.
Cook's Jam, Chief Clarence Louie, you have many hands raised up to you in our chat box and from everybody around, the great feedback. Thank you for the work that you do, and give us all something to strive for, because we need motivators and we need inspirers to carry us through. And just wanted to drop that audible.com, like he was saying, if again, for not all CDs and stuff like that. Audible.
That term motivation, my mom, the old people, how Indians the Indian way of that term's kind of a Shama term. We call it a kick in the rear. Everybody needs a kick in the rear once in a while. Even I, as a chief, I need a kick in the rear once in a while. And the people that give you the kick in the rear are the ones that care about you.
Awesome.
If they don't care about you, they wouldn't say nothing. So because I care about you guys, I hope I gave some of you a kick in the rear.
I completely agree. I'm also a personal trainer, a group fitness instructor, and a yoga instructor on top of my organizational development. So just so you know, I had a couple of people commenting saying that I could be helping out with some walking groups. I'm also a Fit Nation leader. That is one of your next, just to reach out to Terry's comment about the health and wellness. There's an amazing program in our province now that trains leaders for free in our communities to help our communities get healthy. So thank you for reminding me about that. All right, everyone, we're going to say goodbye quickly. I'm going to say hello to a couple of new guests, and then we're going to turn you through for lunch. Thank you so much, Chief Clarence Louie. We wish you all the best. Excellent. I'm going to just quickly say a shout out here to our amazing duo, Snotty Nose Res Kids. I just see they tuned in. Hi, guys. How's it going? Thank you so much for being here. We're just going to have a quick lunch break here, folks, and then we're going to they kind of surprised it. I was going to do a little teaser, but you see, we've got some superstars that are going to be joining us again at 1 o'clock. So excited to have you guys here. The chatter's been going even amongst the staff and the members. So we're super excited. What's going to happen, folks, is we are going to be, so they are going to be on at 1:05. The acclaimed Heisler hip hop duo Snotty Nose Reds Kids will be joining us to discuss their creative processes and transforming struggle into the amazing things that they are creating for us. So thanks, you guys. We will see you at 1:05. Amazing. So stretch your legs, everybody. Have a little quick. We're a little shorter on lunch, but I think Chief Louis was very much worth hearing. If you would like to submit a resolution, if we could have that resolution screen back up, you know the numbers. We have a 1 p.m. cutoff time because we want to make sure we're going to be starting the vote at 2:30. So we need time on our end to make sure that all of your resolutions are worded in the correct way and that they're able to go to the floor so that we get the best quality of resolutions for you. And yeah, I think that's all. Sorry, checking through all my notes here. And we're going to be doing some prizes because we want to let you guys go have a lunch here. And we've said we need you online. Some of you, we're going to say, if you want to check out for the next 25 minutes to save your internet bandwidth or whatever, feel free. 1 o'clock, be back on. We are going to do a few draws behind the scenes. We'll be able to coordinate. We'll just do them right now. Maybe if I can ask the gang to do it, because I don't want you guys to go off. But if you could do it while people are online so we can see who's there, maybe ladies, instead of doing it officially, if you can do it really quick right now, have the names, you can check them from the list of names, and then we'll announce them after lunch, because I want you guys to have a little bit of lunch. Okay, does that sound good with everybody? Clear as mud, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience this morning. We've also got the numbers for the resolutions where you can text to. And like I said, okay, thank you so much, everybody. Let's take a little break here. We'll return right back at 1 p.m. Thank you so much.
That's, well, more so tribes than me that could live off the land, that'll go fishing, that'll go hunting. Like, if it's hunting season, they're going hunting. If it's fishing season, they're fishing all year round. And a lot of us grow up with like a blue collar workers mentality, like a lot of our parents, aunties, uncles was like, bring that lunchbox to work and put your hard hat on and get to work. So, that really rubbed off on us as kids. And, yeah, it's just surrounding ourselves with those people. So when we first moved to the city, I know for me personally, that's when I really started to learn about the harsh history that this country has with us as Indigenous people. And I want to say ironically, maybe not, but that's around the same time, like, I started growing my hair. So as I'm starting to see these changes, and Tribe's hair was already long at this point, I was just playing catch up. And, it was just surrounding ourselves with people that were, academics, that were land protectors, that were, knowledge holders, and all these people that like learn their language and can speak their language fluently. That really like lit a fire under us, and we just wanted to be that voice, and this is like not in the midst, but like, I want to call it like the I don't know more effect, or like just to be able to see from coast to coast, to see all the nations rally together. Right. And that was like a really, really huge moment for us, because it showed that there's like such beauty and unity, and yeah, we just wanted to be that voice. A lot of us growing up, we've had family members that have, they've gone through the residential school system, and we felt it was long overdue for it to be talked about, you know, and like, and especially in hip hop, because not only do we absolutely love hip hop, but that's what connects most with like the youth. And instead of saying like wherever we'd be out, just out and about on a Friday, Saturday, or wherever, instead of sitting down and like arguing with somebody and debating with somebody, with even with things with like, there shouldn't even be a debate when it comes to like being racist, you know, like when you have to call somebody out and like they're just ignorant and that just turns into an argument. So for us, it was more, let's write this down in songs. Because instead of going back and forth for minutes to hours, you're going to sit down and listen for the next 3-4 minutes to about what I got to say. This is where we come from, you know? And yeah, since the jump, it's just been like, so the saying that we have, or that we started saying, especially working on this next project, was don't play the game, change the game. You know, like I'm not saying we're the first, because there are many Indigenous artists that came before us and that kind of paved the way and laid down the work for us to be able to do what we do. But we wanted to like leave a long lasting impact. And, you know, because growing up, there wasn't that much like pride growing up and like learning the culture for us. I'm not saying it's like that for everybody, but for us, you know, for us, it was just like sports, you know, play basketball and, you know, play hockey, play soccer. And that's because like a lot of our parents, their mom and dads, our grandparents went to like residential school. And that's kind of like the residential school effect, where like it just wasn't really taught or really pushed upon us. But now with the resources that we have and how the times are slowly changing and the tides are starting to turn, you know, we wanted the youth to be proud of themselves, you know, to have long hair, to be who you are and be proud of who you are, be proud of where you come from and be proud of the skin that you're in. And yeah, that's been our goal since the jump, was to just inspire the youth, you know, because we were trying to be what we wish we had growing up. Because like if you look into hip hop, you look into the mainstream, there's not really much Indigenous acts that you can name that have like made that impact. And because even though there were groups like that, you know, like War Party with like Dreezus and all, you know, all the big bros, right? But social media wasn't social media yet when we were in high school, when we were coming up. But now with like the influence of social media, you know, like anything is possible. And that gives you so much opportunity to like interact with fans and to grow that fan base and actually have that, you know, that bit more of a connection than you could. And we just wanted to like, for lack of better words, just like just indigenize, you know, like for all the land protectors, for all the matriarchs, for every single person that had their hand in with like raising us and helping us become who we are. We wanted to not just do it for them, for the generations before us, but for the generations after us. You know, like it took, what are we on? 150 plus years of like fighting colonialism here in Canada. Like, I don't know if we will like live to see that change, because it's going to take another 150 plus years to get away from this place, right? Because it took 150 to get here, and it's going to take 150 more to get out of it, right? But it's important that we all put in that work and just put in that effort, and because you can never say die attitude when it comes to like revitalizing the culture and revitalizing your language, your traditions, and ceremonial ways. You know, we just wanted to do every single thing that we possibly could to help bring that to the forefront, because like I said in the beginning, it was just like super long overdue.
Yeah, I just want to kind of add to what Dee was saying too about like how we are inspired by our communities and inspired by the people that are around us, inspired by not necessarily like, obviously we're inspired by like different types of music and stuff like that, but what mostly inspires us is the work that the people put in our communities to hold us up. Because the way that we've always said it is that like me and Dee are just like one like little piece to a bigger puzzle, you know, like we ain't shit without y'all. That's kind of how it goes. And like a lot of the work that we do is being piggybacked off the backs of the people that are putting in the real work. So we're a voice for a movement. We're not trying to say that we're it. We're not it. We're just a little piece to the puzzle. But with that said, like, you know, like if you guys have heard our first 3 albums, a lot of the times, a lot of the work that goes into it is what we're going through in the moment. So like this last part of this, the next album was supposed to be part of like this trilogy that was like past, present, and future. But due to unforeseen circumstances, it's been a dark winter. It's been a dark 2020 was a dark year. We've seen a lot of death. We've seen a lot of death to suicide, and it was really heavy on our hearts and our souls. So I feel like plans kind of changed, and we're gonna switch it up and like kind of just get back to healing. And that's what we do with our music. We heal for ourselves. Most importantly, we heal for ourselves. And if we can do that, we can heal our communities. So that's the work that we put in, and we take that upon ourselves, and we take pride in that as well. So like we take the pain and the burden in writing these songs so that our listeners and our youth can use it as a healing tool. So like that's the work that we do.
Yeah, it's just another thing like to add on to that, and the reason why I like just like to do what we do is just show people too that like it's never too late to learn. You know, like on the last album, Trapland, we really started to incorporate, you know, our own language, the Haslakala language, into our songs, because we wanted to show that like how boss it is to say something in your native tongue. You know, like I find it like so liberating when you're just able to say like if you could speak full on sentences. It's just like the most empowering thing to me ever, hearing somebody talking their language. And you know, we're still learning as we go. You know, we don't know everything. You know, we're not, you know, and we don't claim to know everything, but you know, we're just learning and continuously growing as, you know, as the days go by. And we just want all our fans, all the old day one fans to the new fans, just to grow with us, you know, and heal in the process, just like you said.
Yeah, and most importantly, I think like one of the things that me and Dee take pride in as well is kind of like more than like having our grown listeners take pride in that. But like, sorry, I'm speaking out of context right now. When we rap about our culture, we rap about our languages, we rap about our traditions, we rap about living off the land, we rap about pretty much what it is that makes us Indigenous, and more importantly, Haisla. But to all our listeners out there, and most importantly, our youth, we try to make it cool to be proud of who you are as an Indigenous person. Because for us, we never had that growing up. And I know like a lot of like older listeners and stuff like that, like they found that in us, and something that they've never been able to do growing up, and us as well. You know, we come from a community that is very segregated into like a white community. We had Alcan, it's this plant that was built in our community, and it was kind of forced upon us. But you know, it brought in a lot of foreigners into our community, and a lot with that comes a lot of racism, obviously. And it taught like our youth. And I remember growing up, they're like we'd be bullied on the daily, and my dad said it's not their fault. They were taught to hate ourselves. So you know, like we're kind of coming out of that. We're in the 7th generation, 8th generation, And our youth are finally starting to see pride in who they are and where they come from, and find like the beautiful parts of it instead of just finding the ugly that was taught to us by the colonizer. You know, so that's what we take pride in as well. And I think that hip hop is a perfect avenue to do it. It's the most listened to genre in the world, and you know, like there's a lot of elements that come from our culture that is very connected to the hip hop culture as well. So it only makes sense for us to be a part of this, be part of this culture. That is hip hop. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, also just another quick addition to the hip hop thing. I didn't realize this or like recognize this until further down the road. Is one of our homies from Mob Bounce. Shout out to Mob Bounce. It was Craig. He told us like this Ernie Paniccioli quote on how how basically hip hop and like indigenous culture go hand in hand. It's so you look at like the 4 aspects of hip hop. You got the DJ, the MC, the graffiti artist, and the b-boys and the b-girls. Well, for indigenous culture, DJs, we have our drummers. MCs, we have our storytellers. B-boys and b-girls, we have our powwow dancers. You know, all the graffiti artists, we have our carvers, we have our beaters, you know, we have our jewelers. So they really go hand in hand. And I feel like that's why hip hop resonates so heavily within the indigenous community, because I want to say like subconsciously, we're already like driven towards that because there's so many similarities, right? And yeah, hip hop just made perfect sense. You know, if people don't know about the history of hip hop, it came from like in the mid to late 70s. It was the voice of the oppressed, you know, and us as indigenous people, we know a thing or two about oppression. We know a thing or two about a colonial society. We know a thing or two about, you know, genocide and racism and the whole works. So I feel like for us, it was meant to be, you know, but what we also want to show is that, you know, having that undeniable faith and belief in yourself to do something, you know, for us, especially in the early days, like we had to think like long run, because as much as we dreamed and fantasized about, you know, blowing up and getting big overnight, that's usually not the case with most people. You know, a lot of people aren't like patient enough or just say if they're going to do something to see it through. And it basically came down to like patience and perseverance with us. And the biggest thing that we learned was there's a couple things. It's don't let the amount of time it'll take to complete something scare you from doing it, because that time's going to eventually pass by anyway. You know, we started this journey, like 5 years ago? And we knew where we started from, you know, basically like ground level. And, you know, we knew it was going to take 4 or 5 years, but it was just a matter of being patient and like seeing it through, because we didn't want to get to like this point today and then look back and be like, damn, I wish I started 4 years ago. Damn, I wish I started 5 years ago, because that time's going to eventually pass anyway. It's the same thing with like going to college and getting a degree. You know, it's the same thing with like even like saving up money for like a vacation, you know, to go travel somewhere. So, and another thing too, besides like the patience and perseverance, is to don't let somebody tell you that you can't do something, because when somebody tells you that, it's a reflection of the limitations that they put on themselves. It's not your limitations. That's what they put on themselves. You know, we've had countless people doubt us, laugh at us, saying that this is impossible, we can't do it. But that gave us a chip on the shoulder, and we believed in ourselves, we believed in each other, and, you know, bet on yourself always. It goes a long way.
Yeah, just to add to that too, if you guys are interested, there's a book with Ernie, and he was actually like, I heard some stories from a guy named Q Rock from Toronto, and David Strickland. They're homies of Ernie's as well. And they were telling me that like natives were there from like day one, from the birth of hip hop. Like they were part of it. And there's a book called Hip Hop at the End of the World. You can find it online, and it's Ernie's book. And he was a photographer, and he photographed like the upbringing, the legends, like everybody. I was just gonna order it right now or something like that. But just to add to what like Dee was saying, like we have a lot of youth that come up to us online, and they're always asking us like what we did to get here. And the thing that we always come back to is hard work and just believing in yourself. There's no calculated method or like formula to do this. It's using the tools that are at your disposal, like social media is like a main one, and using your network, like social media, obviously, but the network within it, like all the people. Make sure that they believe in you as well. Make sure you're sharing your stuff. And like I know I'm not just talking about like hip hop, any kind of music or any kind of art form. Like you just got to put in the work, to be honest. And because we have a lot of like people that are coming up to us and asking us for a feature, and like getting a Snotty Nose Rez Kids feature doesn't mean you're gonna make it. You have to put in the work still, because just getting us on a track doesn't mean it's gonna be heard. Like sometimes our music hits, sometimes it doesn't. And that's the same thing with anything. If you get like a famous rappers, like like a, obviously not Drake, but I don't know, like an ASAP Rocky feature, who says that he's going to promote it? You still have to put the work in on yourself, for yourself, to like make it to wherever you want to be. It's like anything, hard work pays off.
True. Also, to speak up about like the arts, another thing like we like to talk about is how, us as Indigenous people, we're like natural born storytellers and creators. We just got to find our way to express it. For us, it was hip hop. For some people, it's storytelling. For some people, it's carving. For some people, it's educating. And some people, it's just finding out what you're most passionate about and what you love to do, and just running with it. Yeah. Because like we're all born with a gift. I don't care what anybody says. Every single person is born with a gift. And once you figure out what that is, you run with it and don't look back.
Yeah. And just to add on to what I was saying like a few seconds ago, I know artists are kind of like in and out of like different things, and like their schedules can be off and all that. They can be all over the place. But the thing that really set us above was like our work ethic. And I say that like I'm not saying that to be like cocky or anything like that, but we made this out to be our jobs. So when we were making Trapline, and even right now, like I'm in my studio right now, and I'm about to go to work. Like you get up in the morning and you make your coffee, you make your breakfast, and you get to work for 8 hours. And when we were doing Trapline, that's what we did every single day. Like we'd get up Monday to Friday, put our 8 hours, put our 10 hours, put our 12 hours in day, and wouldn't stop until that album was finished. And that's what you got to do. You got to treat it like a job, no matter what it is. You got to put that work in. You got to put that time in. And if you want it to be a career, then treat it like a career. Because if not, then you can just like kiss it goodbye, like Darren said. And why not put in the time now? Like the time is now. I don't know.
Yeah, and like what a lot of people don't recognize is like with me and we tribes, we worked for free for a very long time. There are many nights where we're working on The Average Savage and we're working on Trapline and we're having fish and rice for dinner for countless nights, but we believed that all that was going to pay off. And I don't know if a lot of people know who Gary Vee is. He's like this business mogul, smart man. And especially when it comes to business and just life in general. And he would say, it's like most people aren't willing to eat shit for a while when they're pursuing something, like when they're pursuing their passion or their dream or their lifelong goal, because in the beginning, it's not instant success, you know? And like I was saying earlier with the patience and perseverance, Rome wasn't built in a day, you know, and neither was any empire or any business or any endeavor. So it's just, yeah, I can't stress patience enough. Patience is like a very big one, because there are times where me and Tribes will record a song and be like, this is the one, man. This is the one. This is the one that's going to take us, and like flop. And like, or we set our expectations. we set our expectations so high that when we didn't reach that number, we would kind of get down on ourselves. But at the same time, we would like push ourselves. Like, all right, we're going to make this next one better. And just basically almost driving ourselves insane by like just repetition and doing it and doing it and doing it. And again, that goes back to the work ethic that was installed in us from like our parents, from our aunties, from our uncles, from our grandparents.
And just to add to that, Dee's right. You know, like sometimes we set the bar too high for ourselves, and you know, like from day one, that's what me and Darren did. But like, you know, like if you set the bar high, just know that you could be let down, and don't get yourself down on that. One of the things that we did, like when we made the first album, we didn't realize what a grind it would be. Like we went to all-night basketball tournament, and we're athletes too. Like we play in that tournament. But that year, we weren't playing so much ball. We were more like rapping. So we took the year off. But we went to all native anyway. And what we did was like, we printed off like 500 CDs. And we walk up and down the roads trying to sell them, selling t-shirts, like just like making sure like we get that money, you know? Cause like Darren said, there was no money coming in. There was nothing. And like when you're doing this, it's almost like working on a degree. Like it's a 4-year process before we started seeing any kind of income. And if you're native, you're already sought after if you're good. So like that's a perk that we can finally have, like that our parents never had, especially in the arts. You know, like people want to hire native people right now, and it's beautiful. But you know, like it obviously came with a lot of like struggle and a lot of like work that needed to be put into that. But what I was going to say was, actually, I think I forgot what. Yeah. Damn. It'll come back. But yeah, no. Yeah, if you have anything to say, I'll remember what I was going to say. Just lost my train of thought.
No worries, it happens. You guys got beats in your head all the time. I can only imagine how many song lyrics are pumping through your brains right now.
I got it. That's what I was gonna say. A lot of people often think that, like Darren said, like Rome wasn't built in one day. It took like a lot of people and a lot of work that got put into it. So for us right now, we have a team of people around us that are working for us to put our music out there and get us booked on shows and get us like different things. We got our manager, we got our booking agent, we got people that I work on our videos. But you know, it started with me and Darren. That was it. We didn't have no producers, no engineers, nothing. We had to put the work in to make that happen. And a lot of people think that, you know, like, oh, yo, I'm a rapper and I'm pretty good at it. Yeah, well, show me what you got. Show me some content. Oh, I don't have anything yet. You know, well, what makes you think that people are going to want to work with you when they don't even know what you're about? You got to make the initiative and make sure that you get your foot in the door, and then people will come. People don't just want to work with people that they need to see something in you. So if you don't have anything, make them see that, you know?
Yeah. Also, like, to add on to that is a lot of people say like, oh, like I'm a perfectionist. It needs to be perfect before it's finished. And you know, if you listen back to our first album, like it was like more raw than perfect. But I was taught, like, in the music program that I took, was done is better than perfect, right? And I also seen this this one post. I don't know if we got many Simpsons fans here, but it showed a picture of the Simpsons back in like their very, very first episode, back when it was just like little TV skits, and like just how different and like wonky the cartoon looked. But the caption was like, "Don't worry about being perfect, just start. Worry about it later." And that's like exactly what we did.
Yo,
You know, if you,
yeah, I think it said, "Don't worry about perfection. Perfection will come later."
yeah, and it's like, you know, that's exactly what we did. You know, like,
Yeah.
we mixed the first album ourselves. We recorded and engineered ourselves. You know, and but that helped us learn a lot at the same time with the do-it-yourself approach. So whenever we do get help from a mixing engineer or we go to a studio, we're like super grateful. And not just grateful, but we know exactly what we want, you know, and
Yeah.
it never hurts to do it yourself. Of course, you could use help along the way, especially in today, because like you could learn anything on YouTube. You can learn how to change a tire on YouTube. You can learn how to fix a sink on YouTube, you know. And for me, like, I've been learning how to produce going on 3 years now, and it all started on YouTube, you know, and learning how to mix, you know, learning how to mix and master, YouTube, learning how to use, you know, Photoshop and stuff like that is like YouTube, you know. Even it's down to like creating social media content. Like, there's so many things with like YouTube, and TikTok's a big one. I've been on TikTok a lot lately, and like there's just, the range is like unlimited for the things you can learn with today. And it's amazing because our parents, let alone me and Trabs in high school, we didn't have that. We didn't have social media in high school. I mean, we did, but it wasn't what it is today. So, you know, just think outside the box, you know, whatever it is you want to do. And the internet's a good place to look if you're looking to start something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, that's amazing. We've got our chat box is blowing up with you guys. You got so much fans in our audience here. And I'm going to I don't know if we want to open up the floor to questions right now. And Tribal Chief Mina, I know you'll co-facilitate, or if you want to jump in and go into the chat box at all. If anybody has any questions, please put your hand up. Or we'll keep an eye on that. I noticed I had a couple hands up and then they went down, but it might have been you answered their questions. Chief Mina, Tribal Chief Mina, is there anything on there that you'd like to?
Yes, for sure. Thank you. I'm a new fan. You guys, I wasn't just becoming new to your work, and it's amazing. Because of my kids, I have a variety of ages. I'm exposed to a wide variety of music. You'd be surprised, from meditation to opera to rock to hip hop and everything in between. So I just want to do a shout out for Candace George here. I don't know if you guys can see the chat box on there, but Candace says, I would love to sing with you. If you ever want to incorporate Dakota language, yeah, please keep me in mind. And Candace George has a beautiful voice. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
She's an artist herself, and I'm a mad fan of her too. Her as well.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, if you guys can send us links, that'd be cool.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think we have an email for you, so we'll do an introductory email.
Yeah, just send us a link on there.
Okay. I was wondering why it's being called. Oh, okay, it's somebody else. Somebody's got the wrong name on there. Hip Hop End of the World. Mob. Is that, which one is that? Travis Hebert is our.
Oh, that's from Mob Bounce. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna enter that book's name in the comment section real quick.
Okay.
And I had to say, when you said Mob Bounce, you guys got to know, and this is about being on the land. I was in Seke Dene doing some work with their education department, and I'm walking out in the bush, and all of a sudden there's these two amazing dudes that come walking up with the biggest smile on their face. And I was like, hey, how do you guys do? We start chatting. turns out after we chat for about an hour, oh, it's Mob Bounce, and they're out on the land too, walking through the bush with me. So just I hold my hands up to all of you guys that are staying true to your roots and staying true to who you are.
Yeah, shout out to Mob Bounce.
We thank you guys.
They helped us get started too, actually. They were mentors of ours.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was it like to be part of Monkey Beach? Is that the area you are from too?
Yeah. So Eden's actually my cousin. Like she's my mom's first cousin. So they grew up together, and my mom's like a character in the book. Like my mom's like her identity, her actual person is a character in the book. And so like for us, like that's been in the works for a long, long time. It's been like they've been talking about it forever. And I remember growing up, like I might have been like, I don't know, like 12 years old. And my mom was talking about me being a character in the movie. And I was like, nah, that ain't me. You know, like, but now looking back at it, it's kind of funny that how it happened, you know, like it kind of came in like last second for us to be in that movie. And they just made it work like real quick. It was like bam, bam, bam. And then next thing you know, we're in Kidmat and we're just doing this little skit in the movie. But yeah, it's funny to like how it all came together and how you connect everything together. Cause like my mom really wanted me to be a part of that when we were kids. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, definitely we're all from the same nation.
If you want to open up to anybody who wants to come up and ask a question.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't do that.
I was going to say too, and just, I don't know, and I don't want to put you guys on the spot or anything, but I've had a couple of people say, I'm not sure what their music is. And I didn't know if you guys would be comfortable, either one of you, dropping a significant lyric or giving some of us older members like me and Mina that are kind of new to the party, if you're comfortable, but not if we don't want to put you on the spot. But I just had a couple of private messages going, can they sing or can they drop a line or a beat or something for us? And no pressure.
Yeah.
No, it's
yeah,
okay.
Go ahead, dude. Do you got this?
No pressure?
No pressure at all. No perfection needed here, my friends. You are full of loving arms and ears.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could do it like a spoken word. That's cool.
Yeah, do it.
If you could, that would be great. We would appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this was basically like the first like verse spoken word that was like political. So when I was in my audio engineering school and music production, me and my bro Clayton, one of our projects was to remix one of the songs the teacher showed us for like Earth Day, and me and him were the only natives in the class. So we were just like, hey, let's give like the native point of view on it. It's like, hell yeah. So here goes. Dear Mama Nature, I just want to thank you for staying strong, even though that you're always in danger. Listen close, homie, let's get real. For all those that are trying to make a meal, sitting in the office with the blueprint, with the money-making scheme, with the green, they won't stop until they make the deal. Even if they steal, we stand in the way because my people strong-willed. It don't matter, they don't care how we feel. All they care about is them dollar bills. You think they care about an oil spill? Where a bunch of youngins in the res get killed from cancer after drinking that water from the tap. You think a simple sorry can make up for something like that? Hell nah, man, you know they be lying. Tell it to the ones that be living in the sky. So keep that in mind if you wonder why I flip the middle finger to the pipelines like the boys in the Haida. They got us fighting for a land that's already ours. We stand tall but don't fall like the Twin Towers. And Pac said at best, I'd rather die like a man than to live like a coward. Because if you can't find something to live for, then you best find something to die for. Therefore, you better understand that I live for the mic, but I'll die for my land or my relations.
Oh, that was amazing. Cheers to me.
I'm gonna be hand clapping for everybody because you are freaking everybody out right now, including me. I know Mina, I'm like sweating to death here, and I swear it's not menopause either. Way to go, guys. Oh my God, that was so amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Oh my God. We are getting so much love again, blowing up for you. Thank you so much for singing our voice, my friends. Your song is the voice of us all, and your experience is the voice of us. It's the experience of us all. And amazing. Thank you, SNRK. Thank you for bringing your knowledge. You're helping us to reclaim our pride and our joy in ourself. Because again, I always say it, that the glory of one is the glory of all. So we really hold our hands up to you. And say my Kuksjem, Musi, all the other languages. We are just so happy to have you here and so honored by the work that you do and the hope that you're giving our young people, that there's a future out there for them. So thank you, with the right hard work and the right mindset. So thank you. You honor us.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us first shot.
Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to check in my chat box. Just give you a few words. Totally inspiring. Boom. That was awesome. Amazing. Thank you. True talent. A ton of hearts here. Love your name. Oh, Candace George is bougie native. I love that name. Way to go, Candace. And just such a beautiful story. So proud to hear you all. And just great advice, you guys. So thank you so much for being there, everybody. If you feel free, you got your little comments down in the back of your screen. I think some people, I'm not sure if you can put a thumbs up, but just know we're all high-fiving you guys right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Guys, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too,
Oh my gosh, you guys, how was that? Sorry, I just slipped that in just so if any of the audience wants to know, that was totally not planned. I've been just typing going, should I ask them to drop a beat for us? So I'm sorry if I just did that. I think everybody's patting me on the back. Oh my God, amazing. Thank you, you guys. That was fantastic. All right, let's get back on the agenda. I'll try to get myself, I'm all a flutter here. That was super exciting to see such amazing people in our communities that are doing these wonderful things. So I appreciate you all. All right, next time, who's on the hot seat now is our amazing